final introductory exercise, we're going to work with two images. This one of an orange truck with oranges inside of it, still on the ground, and this image of orange slices. So normally I don't really care how you work as far as viewing multiple documents in Photoshop. Right now you can see that we're in tab mode because you have these thin tabs up top, and they each have a name, and when you click on them you see whatever image is in that document. Also, you might take notice that on the bottom right, the layer changes every time I click on it, just because that's the layer of that file. It's only one layer in there, and it's a little picture of the truck. And this one is the only layer in this file, and it's a little picture of the oranges. So there's always that little tiny picture that will tell you what document you're in. So this is tab mode, but I'm going to have you all switch out of tab mode just for this exercise. So we're going to go to Window, Arrange, and right now it's in tab mode, so we're going to go to Float All in Windows. So we want the two documents to float independently of each other, and you can see they're separate windows. So we have the three buttons up top, still same files, just a different way of viewing them. So for the first step of this exercise, we're not gonna need the oranges right away. So I'm going to minimize this. Click on the little yellow minimize button of the orange slices picture, so it pops down to the bottom. And we're going to just type the word oranges onto the truck. So you can hit T on the keyboard. That would work. Might take a second, little spinning pinwheel thing. And that's basically loading your font library. So once you hit T, it activates the type tool. You can also go over and click on it on the toolbar, and just click once anywhere on the side of the truck, sort of to the left. Okay, now it gives you this preview text, which if you remember, it's just filler. So when you type a real word on the keyboard, it will replace it right away. And my type is really small, so I'm going to make mine bigger. So I just hit Command A to select it. You could also use your cursor to drag across it. And I'm going to make mine, I can use my up arrows on my keyboard, make it bigger. Now you can also hold down Shift as you hit the up arrows, so your type sizes get bigger by increments of 10. So you can see up top what's happening. It's going to 66 point, 76 point, 86 point, and that's when you're holding down Shift. It just goes a little faster. You could also just enter a number in there and it would change it too, but I like to do it that way so I can kind of see it in real time. So that's looking okay. Now, if that's not exactly what typeface you're seeing, that's fine. Mine happens to be Myriad Pro, which is the default. Of course, you could change that. If you double click on it, you can change up top where the name of the font is. You can click once on it to activate it, make it blue, and you can type whatever typeface you want. We used Impact for the Hollywood sign, so if you want to use that, you can. Just something bold and blocky is probably good. Nothing too fancy or script looking. Okay, so we have our type and we have our picture of the oranges, the truck. So we have two layers. Now, it doesn't really matter what color your type is filling with right now. Mine filled, sometimes it fills with the foreground color, which is normally what it does. For some reason, it didn't do it that time. But it doesn't really matter what your color is right now because we're going to do something cool. So go ahead and pop open that orange image again, the document that has the slice oranges in it. All right. Now we have, like I said before, we have two separate documents. So if you want to get this layer, that one layer called background, into the other image, it's really easy. All you do is move your mouse over to where that layer is. So put your little Mickey Mouse pointer glove right on top of the layer, click and hold, and you'll see a ghosted version of that layer, and you just let go, and it pops it into the other document. And I can actually close the original oranges picture. And if you have it overlapping your type, then that's good. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to fill that type with an image of oranges. So right now it's just two separate layers, right? So if I take the eyeball off, you'll see the type is still there. Put the eyeball back. But I want to make it so that what's black, the type, whatever's black in the type is going to be oranges. So here's what we do. Move your mouse right on top of the two. There's like a line between the two layers, like a crack between them. Okay. And if you hold down the Option key on your keyboard, but don't click on your mouse yet, but if you kind of wiggle your mouse around, when you get right over that edge between the two layers, you'll see a white box with a down arrow, little black arrow pointing down. When you see that, keep Option held down, the Option key, and I think on the PC side it's Alt, A-L-T. Just click once. See what happened? Pretty cool. So it filled the oranges word with oranges. And you can move it around. There's still separate layers, so you can move. If I'm on the top layer and I move it, it's going to move around a little bit. And if I'm on the type layer, I can move it, and the oranges stay the same. If you decide for some reason you want them to lock together and stay in position, so the whole point of me moving these around, by the way, is I want to get to be a little bit lighter maybe, so the oranges are a little more legible, the word oranges. Because sometimes you get into like an area like that and it's just kind of hard to read. So not a big deal. We're going to fix it in a second, but if you wanted to move it around a little bit, you could. And you could always hold down the Command key and select two layers at the same time, just like I just did. So here's what I did. I had the orange picture layer selected, or active, and I held down the Command key and clicked on the one below it, and it selected them together. So now when I use my Move tool, see how they stay locked together? Right? So that's what it looks like when they're locked together, and if you just have one layer activated, it's going to do that. So they're still two layers, but they're just have a new relationship with each other. It's called layer grouping. Okay, so let's make sure we're on the middle layer, the one that says oranges, the type layer. Okay, I want to give this a little bit more of a presence as far as making it more legible, because right now the type is okay, but I'd like it to be more legible than it is. So we're going to go to the layer menu up top. So you have your layer menu and you have this option called layer style. So you're adding a cool visual sort of effect to the layer. That's what a layer style is. So it doesn't matter if it's type or anything else. It's just a way to kind of add little effects to it. So in this case, I want to add a little drop shadow. So I'm going to go down to drop shadow. And you can see how many things are in this menu. A lot. Okay. The drop shadow just gives you right away a dark shadow behind the type. We don't need to do this right now, but there is a way to kind of give it a little bit of a distance. This is sort of like what we did with the Hollywood sign, but the Hollywood sign shadow, we made it in such a way that we could actually stretch it. And you don't really have that ability in the layer style menu to kind of distort the shadow so it looks like it's on a hill, for example. So there is a little bit of a distance option if you have. Spread just changes kind of how concentrated the shadow is. And size is just it makes the area wider where it's dispersed. So we don't really have to tweak those too much because already you'll see it added a lot to the type and made it stand out. Okay, and hit OK. Cool. If I decided later that I hated this and I want to take it away or change the color of the drop shadow or whatever, I could always just double click on that layer and I get the layer style menu, which has my options here. I could say, no, I hate the drop shadow, or I like it again, whatever. Whatever you need to change, you have to be on that actual layer style, kind of like a layer, a little kind of light gray option. And then I'm going to hit cancel just because I like what I have. Okay, so now that we've filled the type with a picture of oranges, we're going to work a little bit on the actual oranges on that picture. So the bottom layer is the layer that contains the picture of the truck. So we want to make sure we click on that. So it's light gray. And I've shown you before how to zoom in and out of a document. So, and by the way, we're actually, since we don't have two documents open anymore, we can probably switch back to tab mode, which you can do by going to that window arrange menu, and you'll see you have an option for consolidate all to tabs. You can also do this. You can drag the top gray bar of your document window kind of up to the upper edge. See how it's lighting up blue? When it lights up blue around the edge, you can let go, and it pops it back into a tab. So you can do the same thing if you want to make it a separate document window. You can drag it down, drag it back up to make it to a tab. Cool. So zooming in and out, Command minus or Control minus, Control plus, Command minus. So Control and Command are the same thing, but just one's PC and one's Mac. So Command minus goes out. So that's one way. But you can also zoom in and out with this thing called the navigator. So I'm going to go to the window menu, and we're just going to open up the navigator, which is kind of a cool way to navigate around an image, especially when you're zoomed way in. So the slider at the bottom of the navigator window that should have appeared, and by the way, just to reiterate, I went to window and then navigator, right? So in the navigator, you have a slider, and if you drag it to the right, it's like you're zooming in, and all the way to the left, you're zooming out. Same thing as that control minus, control, whatever it is, plus and minus, command minus. So you can zoom way in, and you can then use this box that appears in the navigator preview window to kind of scroll over to the area that you want to work with. So get it to the point, if you could, to the point where there's the whole pile of the oranges visible in your window. It's okay if you see the type below too, but just see the whole width of the pile. Okay, so we're going to use the magic wand tool. The way you get to that is via the keyboard is just the letter W. And then if you look over, your fourth tool should be activated. Just clarify, make sure that that is the little magic wand and not some other tool, because you might see a quick selection tool, and actually the version of Photoshop that you have at home may be different than the one at school for a couple reasons, but one of them is you might see another tool in this little slot in addition to the two that are here. So the one you want is the magic wand tool, okay? And your tolerance probably says, if I can go back to the defaults, probably says 32. Sorry, mine's 32. And I am going to change that to 5 and hit return. So what tolerance is, you probably know what it is in real life, the definition of the word, but it's basically making your magic wand tool picky. So the lower the number, the more picky your magic wand is going to be. And here's what I mean. When you go on top of one of these oranges on the pile and just click, doesn't matter which one, what it does is it only selects the patch of color that you clicked on top of, and it doesn't really, it's not adventurous. It doesn't go outside that little swatch of color. So if you raise the tolerance, I'm going to make it 50, and hit return, and just click on some other oranges somewhere else in the pile. You'll probably see it kind of branched out more and grabbed other tones of orange other than the one you just clicked on. Okay, and we can even make it 80. And when you click on an orange now, it grabbed a lot of the oranges. Didn't grab them all. So the way that you can add to a selection is if you hold down the Shift key, you'll see a little plus sign up here next to your magic wand, right? And you can go over to an area that wasn't selected and just click once. Bink. You can get them all. Now, if it starts to get into like the area of the trees behind the truck, then you can always hit Command Z to go back one step, or you can hold down the Option key, which is right kind of down below the Shift key, right? Or Alt, the Windows side, and a negative sign will appear, and you can take away from the selection. I'm actually pretty good. I don't think I grabbed a little patch right there. I don't want. So you can click on it, and that will take something out of a selection. So once you have most of the oranges, and don't worry if it goes a little bit into the edge of the truck, it's fine. But once you have most of the oranges selected, we're going to change them into limes. So the way you do that is you go to the image menu. So up top, I don't think we've used this menu yet in these exercises, but it's a good way to to change an image in Photoshop in a variety of ways. So if you go to Image Adjustments, there's a huge menu here. But we're going to pick one of them. It's called Hue/Saturation. Okay. Now, to change these oranges into limes, the first thing we have to do is click on the Colorize button, because we want to colorize it. Okay, and when you do that, it just goes to the default. You see the hue slider up top, HUE. It's all the way over to the left, 0. And they kind of look like red potatoes. So we're going to slide that slider sort of to an area of green. You can see there's a whole little rainbow spectrum thing. And then you can kind of, saturation, you can pump it up a little bit. You probably don't want to go too crazy because then it looks like highlighter pen green, which we don't want. Lightness, you don't have to go too crazy, but you can darken it a little bit. Pretty much get it so it looks like limes you would see in a store that you would buy. Okay. So, and just a note about saturation. Saturation is if you go all the way to the left, you're taking all the color, or desaturating an image, taking all the color out, making it look like kind of like, I guess, charcoal. And then if you go all the way, that's going to make it look like that highlighter pen green. So that's somewhere around there is good. And a little more. And then hit OK. Cool. So you notice that nothing else changed. It just whatever was inside that the selection. Okay. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to hit deselect, Command D. Okay. And you can keep the navigator open if you want and zoom out a little bit. Close it and do it with Command minus, Command plus, whatever. Command 0 goes back to full screen, by the way. And just I want to demonstrate one thing. If I hadn't selected those lines first, like we did, right? We grabbed the pile and then did the adjustment of color. Now this is what would happen if you didn't do that. I'm just going to say hue saturation, colorize. So now it will do it to the entire image since there wasn't a specific area selected. And this is kind of a cool technique too. If you want to take kind of what is not that exciting of a photo and turn it into something a little bit cooler, you can use this hue saturation menu to do that. Even if you want to make it look black and white, do that. So it's kind of a cool thing to remember for projects, and you can see how much more legible that type is than it was before, because it's not competing with other tones of orange or anything else. It's really, really standing out. So I'm going to hit cancel. And the last two steps of this, two steps of this exercise are to change the word oranges into limes, and also to change the picture of oranges that's filling that type into more of a lime green tone. So let's do the top layer first. Now the top layer, remember, it's still a separate layer, although it's been grouped with the type, so it fills it. It's still a separate layer, so we can do adjustments, image adjustments, hue saturation, colorize, find that nice green that sort of is close to the green we already picked, right? Now you got that looking like it's limes, and then we're going to click on that middle layer, which is the one that has the type on it. And since it's still a type layer, notice that we didn't need to rasterize it like we have done with the Star Wars project and with the Hollywood sign project, because we did the rasterize thing in order to distort the type, but we didn't really need to distort the type here. So it's still a type layer. You can tell because it has that capital T. And the benefits of it being a type layer, one of them is that you can highlight the type and change the font, change the word, change the size, whatever you want to do. Okay, so we're going to just type the word limes. And if you want to move it over, oh, by the way, to get out of a type box while the cursor is blinking, you can hit Command Return or Control Return. And return is just another word for enter, so it might just say enter on your keyboard if you're a PC person, I'm not sure. But anyway, now we can grab the move tool and just scoot it around. Remember, if you want to move it with the lime image and not just kind of like the type alone, you can go down and hold down the Command key or Control key and click on those two layers so they're both gray, and then do as much movement as you want and they'll stay locked in place. Okay, so last things to do are to merge this the file, merge all the layers. So we're just going to say layer. Now merge visible is just going to merge everything with an eyeball next to it on the right hand side, which is fine, or flatten image, either one will work. Cool. And then we're going to just save it. So file, save as. Cool. And what I would suggest doing is saving it to to your desktop and then uploading it to your Google Drive. Just a good idea no matter what. I mean, I guess for now, all you need to do is save it for me, upload it to the Google Classroom. But in general, with projects beyond this, if you're working on something, you're not done with it yet, and you want to be able to work on it at home and in school, then a Google Drive is probably the best option, some folder up there so you can access it from both places. Cool, and just make sure you have your name in the orange truck, so I can call this Buck Truck, just so I know who did it. Cool, and then save, and you're good to go. Thanks.